Hi and welcome to the TSW Controller tutorial. I'm going to start by showing you how to download and install the program. So to do that, you just click right here on the latest release and then download the setup.exe file. Just click on it and the download should automatically start. And if it's finished, you can just run it right here. But because I already have a newer version than this one, I just double click the setup file right here. So I would recommend to run it as administrator. And I'm going to continue by selecting English. And then you need to choose a path where you want to install the program. So I'm going to select my D drive and go under Programs. And I also want to create a desktop shortcut and install the program. By clicking on Finish, it should automatically launch my program. And because my Windows is set to German, my program also starts in German. So I'm going to quickly change that. Okay. Now, as you can see, we have this drop-down menu right here where a lot of trains are listed. These are the ones I have included, but only in German. And they are also configured to work with my joystick. So yeah, if you are not using German or use a different joystick, you have to configure the trains yourself. So that's exactly what we are going to do next. So if you click on Settings, we have this box right here called TrainConfig. This is where all of the trains are stored. So we are going to create a new one. I'm going to call it TrainConfig 01. Oops, I scrolled. TrainConfig 01. Click on Add. And I don't want to transfer the data from the default one, so I click on No. And if I click on Save, we now see there is no train listed right here. So going back to Settings and then click on Controls. And here we would be able to select a train we want to edit, but we currently don't have one. So I'm just going to type in BR146 because that's the train I'm going to start with. And then click on Add. And now we focus on the controllers first. So right here you have all of the different controllers I already have included. So what you should do first is check if the keybinds are correct. So for example, in my case, the throttle has a keybind A and D. The brake has OEM7 and OEM3. And just do it for all of these, just to be sure that the program knows what keys to press. So, as you can see, all of these buttons and text boxes are currently grayed out. That's because we currently don't have a controller selected. So we first want to add a throttle. So I select it right here and click on the plus, and then click on it right here. So the first thing we need to define is what part of my joystick should control the throttle. So I just click on Detect and move the lever that I want to use for it. In my case, this is the joystick number 0 and the axis Joy Z. And you should be able to see the move rand on this progress bar right here. And because the throttle in the simulator only goes from 0, which is off, to 100, the maximum, I need to configure this controller right here to do the same. So I want this state to be 0, And if I go to the top, I want this to be 100. And just checking, looks fine to me. Middle position is 50, so this is correct for me. And the lever in the simulator is a continuously variable one, so I click on this button right here. And now the next text box is the reassign joysticks. So what this does is you can overwrite joystick positions. So if I, for example, write that 50 is equal to 60, you can see that the position 50 is getting converted to 60, but only this position. So if I put the lever a bit down, you can see it just is normal behavior, and 50 is then getting converted to 60, and after 50 it is again behaving normally. You can extend this by putting a straight line after it, and then, for example, write 70. So now the whole area from 50 to 70 is getting converted to 60. So even if I move up to, for example, 55, it's still a 60, and also 64, 60. And only if I reach up to 70, it again behaves normally. So what is this good for? If we move to the simulator, you can see it currently is in the off position, and the next possible state is min. Min is equal to 5%. I know that because if I carefully increase it, you can see the next percentage it moves to is 6, so min has to be equal to 5%. So because the numbers 1%, 2%, 3 and 4 don't exist, I can tell the program that if the joystick position is between 1 and 4, it should equal 5. So if I put my lever down, it currently is in the 0 position, and now if I increase it slowly, it should instantly jump to 5%. There. You can see now 1 is getting converted to 5. So next are the convert special cases. These tell the program what text is equal. My program works by reading out these text boxes right here that show the current state of the throttle. So the percentages are fine, it can automatically convert it, but for example max, it doesn't know what max is equal. Same goes for off, it doesn't know that off is 0 and that min is 5%. So we can go back to my program and tell it that off, for example, is equal to 0. And like I said, min is equal to 5 and max is equal to 100. Just checking again, min, max and off. So the next thing we need to do is tell the program the time factor. So the time factor is the amount of percent the throttle lever moves in 1 second. This is important so the program knows how long to hold down a key to move a specific amount of percent. So to do that, I have made it as easy as possible. I I see that I forgot to translate this button right here. It should say find, but just click on it, and then you have a little set of instructions. And I also forgot to translate this one. Just ignore it. We now continue it, and what we have to do in the simulator is to put the throttle lever to the lowest possible position that is written in percent, and where we are able to move from to the maximum without stopping. So for example, in my case from 8%, I can hold down the A key and go all the way up to the maximum without the lever stopping. This wouldn't be the case if I start from the off position, and if I hold down A, the lever stops and then continues. So I'm going to put it in 9%, click on start, switch back to the simulator, and then don't press anything. The lever should now start moving on its own there. And if it stops again, we can move back to the simulator, and you should see the time factor entered right here. So if this process fails, what you can do is just try again and try to put the text box right here behind a white background so we don't have a lot of noise behind it. Or you can just calculate the time factor yourself. So I'm going to position it on minimum, so I know this is 5%. And the time factor is just the amount of percent the lever moves in exactly 1 second. So I'm going to measure the time. I'm pressing start and A in the exact same moment, and I'm going to stop the timer and release A in the exact same moment. So start and stop. So I move to 71% in 1.2 seconds. I'm going to put my calculator out, and because we started at 5%, we only moved 66% in 1.2 seconds. So what we need to do is divide 66 by 1.2, and this equals to 55. So we are a little bit off, but not by much, so it shouldn't be that bad. It's also just an alternative way to calculate the time factor. So the next thing we need to do is enter the long press point, because if we go to the simulator, you can see that if I hold down the A key, it does a short stop at min, because there is a nudge. And the program needs to know that, because if it wants to go to, for example, 50% and it holds down the key a specific amount of seconds, it wouldn't comprehend for this notch right here. So we need to guess the duration on how long to hold down the key, but we can also get a rough idea if we just measure it. So in my case, I'm just going to do the same thing as the time factor. So start and stop. Okay, I now have 600 milliseconds and just moved a little bit into 6%. So I'm going to enter a little bit less in the program. So I'm going to write that going from 0 to 5, it has to hold down the key, just say 550 milliseconds. But because it also stops if I go down, so moving down, it stops at min and then goes to off, I also have to write that going from 5 to 0, it also has to hold down 550 milliseconds. So that would be everything for the throttle. So I'm just going to click on save, close it, save, and I am going to select the BR146. Click on active, and if I now switch to the simulator and I move the throttle, it adjusts to my current position, and as you can see, it works perfectly fine. Also going to off, yes, seems to work. So next we want to configure the brake. So we go back to settings, controls, select our train. And now we go to the controllers list and add the brake to our train. Click on it. And for the braking I want to use the joystick. So I click on detect and pull it towards me. And just confirming that it is exactly how I want it. So idle is the 0 position. And if I pull it towards me, it is the maximum 100. And if we go to the simulator, we can see that the train brake has multiple notches. So I just need to count them. Running is a 0 position, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it has 9 notches. I'm going to enter that right here. We don't need to overwrite any of the joystick positions, because as you can see, as soon as we have entered the count of notches, it already translates the position to the different notches. But what we have are special cases, and we actually have a lot of them. If we look at the little list right here, running is a 0 position, then next is 1A, 1B, 2, 3, 4, and so on. But what's a bit unfortunate is that 2 is equal to 3, and 3 is equal to 4, and 4 is equal to 5, and so on. So we just have to enter that right here. So running is equal to 0, then 1A is equal to 1, 1B is equal to 2, 2 is equal to 3, 3 is equal to 4, 7 is equal to 8, and then full underscore service is equal to 9. You need to put an underscore right here because if we look in the simulator, there is a space in between. And if we already separate each entry with a space, we need to use underscore so the program doesn't get confused. Now again we need the time factor for the brake. So we click again on find and then just read the instructions. Click on next. And what you have to do is put it in a middle position where the position in front and behind of it reach with a normal time delay. So I'm just going to put it in the position 4. Click on start, switch back to it, and don't press any keys. Just wait, the program does some testing. So it first looks how long it takes to get from one notch to another, and then tries to figure out how long it needs to hold down the key to overskip one position, so it can middle out these times. So the lever stopped, and if we go into the program, we see that we have a time factor. In this case, it is a time it needs to hold down the key to get from one position safely to the next position. So we have no long press because we are not going to configure the emergency brake, because for that we need to hold down the key a little bit longer than for each step in between the normal braking positions. So we can just save it and test it out. So save and select the train again. And now if I move the joystick towards me, we can see it correctly moves to every position. We can move those levers at the same time. It sometimes happens that the electric brake uncouples, but there's nothing I can do about that. So just be careful that this lever might be stuck right here and you are not able to drive. So now we are going to talk about buttons. So for example, if I press the button on top of my joystick, it should activate the horn. As you can see, if I press it, it shows that I'm currently pressing B1. So I'm just going to go to Settings, Controls, go to my train, click on Edit, and go to this tab page Buttons. As you can see, we currently don't have any of them, so I'm going to create horn. And this is a normal button. It's not a controller's button. Controller's button is if I want to activate the horn if I pull on the lever, for example. Because this is not a button, it is a controller. So I'm going to click on normal button, click on detect, press it on my joystick. So you can see again the number B1, and the action should be the spacebar. Action is as if you would press the keyboard key, so if you hold it down, the button also gets held down. Click on save, and then you can just close it. And if we select our train, BR146, click on active, and I now press this button right here, the horn sounds. So next I want to show how it would look if I want, for example, if I move my joystick to the left, I want the horn to sound. To do that, I'm going back to controls, edit the train, click on buttons. I'm going to edit the button horn we already have. So I want it to be a controller as button. I again clicked on detect and now move the lever to its side. It says Joy Z, but that's incorrect, so I'm going to detect it again. I'm checking it right here, so if I move it, it says Joy X and not Joy Z. So detecting it again, it correctly says now Joy X. And now I want to add a condition. So if I move it to the left, you can see that Joy X is moving in the negative direction. So I want to say that if the position is lower than 0, it should press the space bar. Click on save, close it, save, select the train, and now if I put it to the left, the horn again sounds. There are different conditions you can put there. You could also say if it is equal to -100. So then only if the joystick is all the way on the left, the horn sounds. You could of course also say if it is greater than 0, so if I put it to the right, it would sound. And you could also say if it is, for example, greater than 10 but lower than 20, then it is only going to sound in the range between 10 and 20. So if I click on save, then only hard to get it in the right position, but yeah, now it is sounding, and if I go back, it is off. So it sounds, and if I move it further, so out of this range, it is again off. So what you are also able to do is to add keyboard shortcuts. So for example, if I want to use this button to toggle this HUD element right here, so this is Control and 5 to turn the speedometer on and off. We can do that too. Just go back to settings, controls, edit the train, go to buttons, and I'm going to add a new one, and I'm going to call it turn off HUD. This is a normal button, and I'm going to detect it. And this time this is not an action, because we need two keys to be pressed at the same time, and action only allows one key to be pressed. So we go to the keyboard shortcut editor. Here we have 4 options. We first have to enter a key. In my case, I firstly want to press Control. And then we can select between short press, hold down, press down and release. Short press is just a short press, so it pushes down the key and instantly releases it again. Hold down, as you might have guessed, holds down the key a specific amount of time. Press down holds down the key for as long as you want and only releases it if you select the release command. So we want the control key to be held down, so like I said, enter control, select press down and add, and then it should press the I think 5, yes, the 5 key, and for this it is enough to do a short press, and then don't forget to release the control key again. Otherwise, even if you release the button on your controller, control would still be held down, but if we add the release command, this won't happen. So click on done, and you can see it has been entered right here. Click on save, and we can close these, save, and if we activate the train and I push my button on the controller, you can see the speedometer turns on and off. So next we are going to talk about global buttons. You can see them right here. So there's a train called global, and if you edit them you can see that we can't switch to controllers because it is just used for buttons. And here you can store buttons that can be used for all of the trains. So for example, if you want one specific key to always honk the horn, you could do that right here. So every button you add here, if I, for example, again add the horn, I want button 0 to do this time, spacebar, save. Then even though I haven't added it to the 146, it still does this. You can also check it if you don't even select the train at all. These buttons are always going to work. If you want a specific train to not use the global buttons, you can just click right here on deactivate global. This removes all of the global buttons from this specific train. So if I activate it and press the button I've pressed before, nothing is going to happen. And this is also saved, so if you deselect the train and select it again, this check mark will always be there, unless you of course uncheck it. If the program is unable to read the current position from the simulator, there can be multiple reasons for that. The first one would be that you have entered the wrong resolution. So to change that, just go to settings, and here you can choose one of these 3 given resolutions, or you can just type in whatever you want right here. but I'm going to stick with this resolution. And the other reason would be the main indicators. So go to settings, controls, and go back to our train. Click on brake or throttle and click on edit. And this applies to every train that uses this controller. So we have this box right here with the text indicators and this drop-down menu with the main indicators. And as you can see, throttle is already entered because if we move the lever, you can see we have the percentage and the word throttle right here. So the percentage, you can imagine it like the information the program needs to know to figure out the current state of the controller in the simulator. And the main indicator, in this case throttle, tells the program which controller has this information. So if you look on our brake and move it, in this case the text indicator would be train brake. And we can check that, go to brake and see what main indicators have been added. And we have brake and train brake, so we don't have to change anything. You can also go directly to the controllers if you click on global keybinds right here. This just brings you to the controllers page, and here you can also select, for example, brake and see these main indicators. It's just a little bit quicker to go there. Another cool thing I forgot to show you is you can edit the joystick behavior. So for example, currently it is, like I said, this is the 0 position and this is the maximum. And if I, for whatever reason, want to say that that the middle position of my joystick is in the program 10, just as an example. So I can say the joystick position 0, this one right here, should output the number 10. If I close it, it adapts. So now you can see 0 is converted to 10. So I'm currently, for the program, on the value 10. And this automatically gets converted to linear motion. So if I move the joystick lever down, you can see it goes to 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, and slowly goes down. And from this point out upwards, it also is a smooth linear transition. So if I would say that the position, what would this be? Minus 80 is 20. Then we are going from 10 in this direction slowly up to 20. And if we hit 20, it quickly jumps up to 100 to get that linear motion. This is only a nice feature and sometimes a bit useful, but mostly I just use these 3 buttons to get what I want, that this is a maximum and this one is 0. You can also just delete complete lines right here. So this is a default configuration, but that's not what we want for this train. We want that this is 0 and this is 100. So now I'm going to configure the BR146. And to start, we again just create a new train, BR146. Click on add. And now we want to add not a throttle, we add a master controller, because if we go into the simulator, you can see that we have a range for acceleration, the power range or area, and we have a braking area. So because the program now only has a percentage and it currently doesn't know if we, for example, are in 40% power, that would be no difference if we were in 40% brake. So it normally wouldn't know if it is currently braking or accelerating. So to change that, we go to the settings of the master controller, and we can see that in the pre-configured one, master controller is already checked. And now we have two additional indicators, the throttle area and the brake area. And if we look into it, we can see we have power and brake. And if we go to the simulator, you can see that we have the main indicator, master controller, and then the brake area indicator is called brake. That's why we have brake area here, that's why brake is entered right here. And if we look at the throttle area, we should see that it displays the main indicator, master controller, then the information, the percentage, and then the indicator for the throttle area. So we have power, and that's why power is entered right here. And if we look into the main indicators, we see master controller and throttle/brake is entered. I think this indicator is for the BR146, but I'm not quite sure about that. But we can see in this train the main indicator is just master controller. So everything is correctly configured right here. So, I closed it, so BR146 add master controller. And now I just let the program detect which joystick I want to use for it. I'm going to use this one for it. And I want this position, pulling it towards me, to be the braking area. So you can see that we have a blue and a red area, where red is the braking and blue is the accelerating area. So I want this position to be this one, the middle position to be 0, and the top position to be 100. And you can see that now this is correctly configured. So next we go back to the simulator, and we can see that 0 and then min is, I think, 10%. Nah, could be 9%. It's not quite. Let's just say it's 10. So we are jumping from 9 is equal to 10. So this is again the reassign joysticks to override the numbers. So we have, as soon as I move my lever up, it jumps to 10 and not goes through the numbers 1 to 9. And for the braking area, we don't have it, I think. I think min brake is just 1%. So I'm going to add the special cases. Let's just see what it was again. Min power. Min underscore power is equal to 10. And min brake is then equal to -1, because this is in the braking area. I double tapped the I. Okay, this is 100% brake, so we don't have to add anything there. And the maximum is also just 100%, so no special cases anymore. Then let's find the time factor. So for this one, we need to put it in first into the throttle area at the low percentage, but always make sure that it is displayed in percent. Click on start and again wait. Okay. And next we need to put it in the braking area to the lowest percentage. 3 is okay. Click on start and again wait the 7 seconds. And after that the time factor should be already set. Right here. We now have 2 time factors because for some trains the throttle area has a different time factor as the braking area, so you can see that the throttle area has 56 and the braking area has 83 as a time factor. So I'm just going to save what we already have. And now we need the long press points because, as you can see, we get stuck at min power, at 0, at min brake, and the program needs to know that. So from 0 to min power, so from 0 to 10. Okay, how long is it? Just going to put my stopwatch out again. No, didn't hit it. 79, how about 700 milliseconds? Let's just say 600 milliseconds. So we also have this if we are going down, so from 10 to 0 also 600. And I would assume we have the same time delay if we go from 0 to -1 and from -1 to 0. Click on save. Just checking if the controller behaves correctly. Okay. Going back and activating the train and testing it. Okay, the braking area seems to work fine. Oh, there was a bit of struggle going to the mid position. Just testing that again. Okay, this time it worked. It seems fine for now. I mean, we could always try to improve all of those values. I think the long press points are not the best one chosen. I think might be a bit more or less of a time delay, but this would work for now. So next I'm going to show it with the 1972 stock train, the underground. And this train is a bit special because we kind of have a master controller, because we are controlling the acceleration and the braking with the same lever. But in this case it has multiple notches, so it's not continuously variable. And that's not possible with the master controller. This only works with continuously variable controllers. So how are we going to set this kind of train up? Again, I'm just going to create a new train. Click on add. And I'm going to add this throttle. Or we could just create a new one. I'm just going to create a master controller and call it 1972 stock. Click on add, increases A, decreases D, and the main indicator is traction brake control. So just going to enter that here. Traction brake control. I think I have entered it correctly. Traction brake control. Hit enter and now we have it right here. but I'm not going to check the master controller checkbox, because this, like I said, only is used for continuously variable controllers. And this one has notches, so this is not the correct thing to check. So I click on save, and now we have this new one right here. I click on the plus, and now I just need to configure it. I'm again going to detect my controller, and like I said, this one is now going to be a bit different, because this braking area here is only used for the continuously variable master controllers. So we don't want it to go into the negative direction right here. So I'm going to say that this position is 0 and this position is 100. So we again just are using the blue area. Now the train has this kind of layout. We have emergency, service application, lab, and so on. And as we can see, we have 10 notches. So count of notches is 10. And the convert special cases I now have to do. So I'm just going to copy each one. Emergency is 0. Service underscore application is 1. Lab is 2. Don't forget that you need to use underscores instead of spaces. Now we need to find the time factor again. So click on find. And we need to find a middle position. So I think, yeah, right here. The off and release is a position where the controller stops, so I'm just going to position it right here. I think here it behaves normally. Okay, click on next and start. And again, wait until the program has found the time factor. So there it stopped. So we have a time factor of 325. And I'm just going to save that. But if I'm going to emergency and hold down the key, like I said, we can see off and release is a point where it stops. So between off and release and the RHEO 1 hold position, it stops for a moment. So we need to adapt for that. Just going to check how long. I would say hard to guess the time. Maybe 400 milliseconds. Just going to test that out. So it was between position 6 and 7, I think. Off and release, and this one. Yes, between 6 and 7, so I should say 6 and 7 and say 400 milliseconds. And also 7 to 6, 400 milliseconds. So let's test it if it works correctly. Save and select the train. And now my lever does nothing. So what could be the problem? let's see. We have the correct movement, correct joystick, 10 notches. We have a time factor. Let's check the controller. We have A and D. And we have, no, I don't want to remove that. And we have a main indicator. Okay, so actually it was just a little problem with my program. So I have fixed it now, and if we select the train, check active, and go into the train, we can see now the joystick behaves as expected. Okay, a little thing I dislike is that off and release isn't the center position of my controller. So it has, my physical joystick has a little notch right here, and I want that off and release is this position exactly. So I'm going to go into settings, controls, and select our train again. And now let's see. Off and release is position 7, so we can see that 66 is position 7. So I now can say that the position 0, so my middle position, should be 66. And now we can see the middle position is position 7, then 8, 9, 10. And downwards it also works. So click on save, save this one, select the train, and now the middle position is off and release, then it goes up, and downwards it also works. Another feature the program has is that you are able to import and export TrainConfigs. To do that, just go to settings and then select your train config. I'm going to stick with the train config we just created. And just click on export, choose your location. I'm just going to use this example folder right here. And I'm going to change the name to 02. Click on save. And if we go into the folder, we can see the train config has been successfully exported, and we can then import it again. So just again go into the folder, select the train config and click on open, and then we have it right here inside of the program. And yeah, that would be everything for the tutorial. I hope I could help you, and I hope you are now able to configure your own trains. If you find any bugs, problems, misspelled words, or translation errors, whatever, you can just contact me on GitHub, YouTube, or the 2 different forums, the German forum and the English Dovetail Game forum, and I will try to help you. And yeah, that's everything, and thanks for watching.